Every club.
Every day.
The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, welcome in to GSPN Daily Wolves, and as always, it is me, Chris, with you once again, as we catch up from, well, let's face it, a rather disappointing weekend as we come away with a 2-0 defeat to Brighton Hove Albion. And I've got to say, everyone, I said it last week when we were recovering from the Manchester City loss, that Brighton are a bogey team for us over recent years. We know we've been demolished by them. Not that we were demolished this weekend, but, you know, we've had our fair share of comeuppances against Brighton. Often they've battered us the last few seasons as we've trailed out with disappointing second half of the seasons under the likes of Bruno Lage and Lopetegui, and we've put in some dismal performances against them. This weekend was less dismal in that sense, but still under par. It felt like there was a definite underperformance from the highs of our 6-game winning streak. And despite some chances where, you know, we could have at least got a 1-1 draw or, you know, maybe stepped it up a little bit and pushed for the win, it just felt another kind of end of season lackluster display. And I feel that was really kind of emphasized by the fact that we saw 4 substitutes thrown on all at once in the second half by Vitor Pereira, as he clearly wasn't happy with how things were going. The flurry of subs on the 59th minute, I mean, some of them he arguably could have made at half time because it didn't feel like things were going that well. And even when the ones that came on, they were, I think some of them gave a little bit of energy and a little bit of a push. You know, Rodrigo Gomez always gives his all. Sarabia looking to play some forward passes in the way he does, and there was some flashes, but it still wasn't happening. It just wasn't our day. Brighton do seem to have our number, as does Danny Welbeck, who always seems to score against us one way or another. Obviously had the ball in the net ruled out through VAR. But it just felt like he was going to get his moment, and he did. So it's just one of those days, I'm afraid. And I just really hope that in the days to come, we manage to, you know, hopefully get back to winning ways before the end of the season. It would be a shame if our last win was at the end of that 6-game streak. Hopefully we can get another 3 points in our last couple of games. But I think most importantly, as well as that flurry of subs, Vitor Pereira obviously made some big decisions there by pulling off Cunha in that row of players because, you know, he also obviously had a bad game, gave away the penalty that saw us go 1-0 down, desperate to get the ball, obviously kind of marked out the game by Brighton as they went man for man and very much, you know, harried and hounded everyone, and Cunha particularly, and he's come really deep, as he tends to do when he gets frustrated, to try and get the ball. And what he's doing quite back there, I do not know. I mean, he's obviously keen to get the ball and push forward, but he's got his back to everyone, and he's not paying attention to his surroundings. He's normally so hyper aware of what's going on, and just no attempt to defend the ball because he doesn't realize that there's guys right on top of him. And then it's a forwards tackle as he brings him down. And I think it was a right yellow card, not a red, given the other players around, but in the situation, because he did go for the ball. However, just an atrocious day, really, and really one to forget for Matheus Cunha. And I hope that we have at least one more good day from him in the games he's got left with Wolverhampton Wanderers, presuming that, you know, he does go in the summer. It'd be a shame if that's one of his farewell parting gifts for us. On top of that, though, really, yeah, overall disappointed. We saw, as we expected, pretty much an unchanged side. I think the interesting thing at the start was obviously there was a bit of discussion over if Strand Larsen wasn't fit to come straight back in the starting lineup, who would be the one to come in place of him this time. And we saw Bellegarde drop back to the bench and Gedge come into the starting lineup, which was intriguing. Obviously, he has stepped up his training because it was only a couple of weeks ago that Vitor Pereira had said he'd been out of the lineup because he was disappointed with his mood or his approach in training. Obviously, he's had some kind of effect on him because he's been back on the bench recently, made a couple of appearances, and then now back in the starting lineup, given a chance. Could have put one away in the first half. I think he had more time than he realised. but then kind of vanished for the rest of the game, and no real surprise, I think, that he eventually got yanked off with that flurry of players on the 59th minute. So whilst I do think he offers something different, Gedge, on his day, again, not really one for him. And perhaps given that he hasn't been in the lineup for a while, maybe a bit rusty compared to some of them, he wasn't really involved in any of that winning streak. And obviously with the disappointments in training, been a kind of out the loop. So I think being thrust into the starting lineup and expecting him to go all guns blazing against, a decent Brighton team was a lot to expect. And I'm happy that Strand Larsen came on. We do miss him. It shows how much we miss him when he's not there. But again, Brighton are solid. However, saying that, Larsen, of course, almost had one in the second half when Aït-Nouri, played in by Sarabia, beautiful driving pass, raking pass diagonal across field, plays in Aït-Nouri, takes it beautifully, drives forward into the box, and it's a low cross. He tends to do those driving passes across the 6-yard box. How someone has got a touch on it, I'm still not quite sure. I've watched that replay a million times. And it ping-pongs around the place, just about between the keeper and the defender. They managed to get it away. Otherwise, Larsen is set for an absolute sitter, nailed on goal. And it was just, and then after that, you knew it was one of those days. You knew it was just not going to go our way, and that Brighton had our number. And after that, it was just generally disappointing. I'm frustrated like the rest of you, but it just felt like it was bound to be, especially after leading up to the game. Obviously, Vitor Pereira given the Manager of the Month award for April, and it is a curse. We know full well that those awards are always curses. Nearly every time someone wins it, the manager then loses one or two, and I think it was set in stone the moment he got that award, and the photos went out for that, and the posing with all the team and everything, that you knew that it was all over. It was all over for us against Brighton. So a disappointing day at the office. I'm curious what the rest of you think, but overall, I'd say it was a 6 out of 10 performance if we're going to give it a score, perhaps. I think we were in the game for the most part, but once you're 1-0 down, you're chasing it. And everyone had probably one of their worst games in a while, and not what we'd expect to see from Vitor's team. And I'm hoping we get a better performance in the coming days. While we think about that, let's take a quick message.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements, designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimize your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
I do think, however, before we go any further in terms of things, while we're discussing the game against Brighton, the performance of Michael Oliver, the referee, I have to say personally, he's one of my least favourite referees in the Premier League. I always feel like he doesn't give us a good experience at Wolves personally. Whenever he comes to Molineux, I'm always disappointed with his performance, home and away, to be honest. Let's just say it's not just at Molineux, it's everywhere. And although I think obviously the penalty you can't argue with, I think overall, again, there was parts, particularly areas of the second half, some of the tackles he was letting go when Brighton, were really heavy-handed on some of the players. It felt like there was a lot of times he was telling people to get up, and I was thinking that is not a dive. That is not a dive at all. Why are you waving him up? I do not know. If you think it's a dive, you should be booking him, but clearly it's not a dive. And you could see a lot of the Wolves players getting frustrated. Aït-Nouri particularly at one point, just arms up in the air, let play drift away from him because of the fact that he was charging into the box and shoved down. And once again, just everything waved on. And I feel there was periods of the game, particularly in the second half, when Michael Oliver I think both sets of players at one point were frustrated with the lack of decisions going their way. And I think he was trying to let play flow, but not always in the right way. what can we say? We've been there with Michael Oliver a bunch of times, and I am just always disappointed. I'm not quite sure how he's still a Premier League referee, to be honest with you, at all. However, looking ahead, guys, what is next? So 20th of May, next up, we have Crystal Palace away. Obviously, they've got the FA Cup coming up. We remain to see how much focus they'll have on our game. But let's hope amongst hope that we get points back on the board. We want to get back to it. I can see us getting a draw at Crystal Palace away. I'd be happy with that. I want the 3 points. But given, they're again, a very good mid-table side. They're kind of doing the things we want to do, FA Cup runs and decent safety in the league, pushing further up the table. We want to, get there or surpass them. Obviously, we're not going to this season. I don't think we're going to catch them this season, even if it's not mathematically set. But those are the teams we want to be emulating and surpassing in future seasons. So I would be happy if we can go and get a point, given the last 2 performances, just to get some points back on the board. And then hopefully Sunday, 25th of May, last game of the season, first time in a while, I think we've had our home game on the final day. Let's finish the season with 3 points against Brentford. And again, get back up to par with one of the teams that we really should be up with or surpassing, because the fact that Brentford have moved past us in the last couple of years does feel like a bit of a kick in the teeth. So I'd really like to get one over them going into the summer, go out on a high, and really just, then hopefully have a decent summer. There's going to be a lot going on in this transfer window. We know there's going to be probably a bunch of outgoings, hopefully the right incomings, and hopefully the likes of Semedo will stay. Obviously, there's a lot of conjecture about his contract. Seems like he wants to stay, but there's all the debate about his wages and what's going on there. But if we let in the books, maybe it'll be fine. Fingers crossed, everyone. Fingers crossed. However, all of that is still to come. All through the summer, we'll do various podcasts and keep up to date on all the transfer news. So let's not worry about that right now. Let's hopefully get over this week. Let's try to get through this week unscathed, as disappointing it is, and look ahead to the 20th of May and Crystal Palace. And fingers crossed, everyone, we get some more points on the board. That's a quick one from me. Take care out there, Wolves fans, and I'll see you soon.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.